We need to create a slide, something that the ball can hit and then roll down so that it hits all of our boxes. To create the slide, we're going to actually make another box. Go to Add, Mesh, and Cube. Now the cube should show up right here between the red and the green lines. So hit G and let's move it out. If you want to lock it to Z, you can move it up. And then you could go ahead and hit G and then Y to move it over. Make sure you have a box right about where I have mine. Now just watch, don't do it. When you select an object and hit S, it scales it larger or smaller. Just like I can hit G and X to move it, I can also scale it along X and Y and Z as well. Let me show you. Just watch for a moment. If I hit S and then I hit X, I can scale it along the X. I can then hit S again and then Y and scale it along Y. Do you see how that works? Click on your cube, hit the letter S for scale, then click X and drag your mouse away and it should get longer. Now click. There we have it. Now click on your object, make sure it's selected with that orange line around it again, and then click S and then click Y. We can now make it longer this way. Let's do it one more time by clicking S and then Z. And now we're going to make it thinner. Right about there. You should now have a nice thin box. We are going to rotate this. Now rotation gets a little crazy. If you hit the R key, that's the rotation key, and it's going to look kind of weird. But remember, we can rotate like we can scale and like we can move along an axis. Click your object, hit R to rotate, and then hit X. And you'll notice it rotates along the X axis. If I move it right like that, I now have a nice little slide that I can roll something down. If you need to move it, you can hit G and whatever axes you need to hit, like Y or X, and just move it wherever you need to. This looks just perfect to me. We need to turn this slide into a rigid body. To do that, have it selected, come down here to this Physics Properties tab, click it, and click on Rigid Body. Now be aware that if you leave it here and you plate it, it's going to just fall. So we have to change it to be a passive rigid body. Also, if you hit spacebar ever and you play this down here, you've got to always move it back to 0. This always needs to be at 0 while you work on your scene. Now it's time for us to make a sphere or a ball that can roll down and hit our boxes. To add this ball or sphere, go to Add, Mesh, UV Sphere. It'll spawn where this red and green line intersect. Click G to move it up, or click G and then hit Z to move it straight up. I'm going to go ahead and rotate around here. And I'm going to hit G and Y to move it so it's above the slide and looks like it would just roll down just fine. That looks perfect. I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to hit the S key and make it bigger. Make sure that it's not intersecting with the slide. What I mean by that is if, for example, it's in the slide, that's not going to work very well. So make sure that you move it so it's not in the slide. There should be a space there. We need to make this sphere a rigid body. So click it so that it's selected, and then come over here to this Physics tab. You may already be there. And click on Rigid Body. Now this we want active, so that if you hit spacebar, it comes down and hits the boxes. You will notice, though, that it didn't do much damage. Let's talk about why. If you click on your sphere, you'll notice that in this Physics Properties tab, that it is active, and that's good, but its mass is only 1 kilogram. Notice all of these are all 1 kilogram too. So 1 kilogram hitting a whole bunch of boxes, each 1 kilogram, it's just not heavy enough to knock them over. Before we change anything here, we need to move our playhead back to 0. Click on your UV sphere and change the mass from 1 to 50. Hit enter or return, and then when you hit play or spacebar, you'll notice it has no trouble going through all of the boxes. Go ahead and move the playhead back to 0, and we're going to change something that's going to make it look a lot more realistic. Move your mouse over to the tab below the stack of pictures above this red world. It looks like a triangle and a circle with another little circle. Click this guy. This is going to be our scene properties. Now, you'll see it says rigid body world, and it's checked. That's good. We want to click on this little side arrow here so it does the drop down, and we want to change the speed to 2. Then hit enter or return. If you do this, and we go back to the beginning and hit spacebar to play, you'll know that it just looks a lot more realistic. Go ahead and move the playhead back to 0. We are going to add some lights. Now, if we add a light in this mode, it's not going to really show us anything. So we're going to go to the very top, and we're going to click on this other type of shading. Your viewport shading method, we're going to change it to be rendered, so click it. And you'll notice that everything got kind of dark. That's okay. We go to Add Light and choose the point light. You'll notice it shows a light way down here, and I can hit G to move it, but it's not really doing anything. When you click on a light, you'll notice that you've created a new tab over here with a light on it. Make sure you've got this guy clicked and come to Power and change it from 10 to 10,000. That's a 1 with 4 zeros. It's now much, much brighter. Click G and you can move your light around. With my light selected, I can hit Shift D and duplicate my light. I can rotate around my scene and hit Shift D again so that I can add as many lights as I feel like I need to make my scene look the way I want it to look. If you want to simply move a light, you just hit G and you can move it. Now when I hit play, everything looks pretty nice. I'm bothered by this sphere though. It has all these weird marks on it. So move your playhead back all the way to 0. Go to your sphere, right-click, and choose Shade Smooth. Now we have a nice, smooth sphere. Let's go ahead and change some colors now. If I click on the ball, and I come over here to this little world thing, it's the Materials tab, and I click on it, I can click New, and I can choose a new base color to be whatever color I'd like it to be. Now I have a different colored ball. But what if I want to change the colors of all of these red boxes? Again, make sure that your playhead is back at 0, and let's zoom in a little bit to these guys. If I click on one and I change the base color, it will actually change all of them. The reason is they are all the same material. In my case, it's called Material 1. But if I click on one of these boxes and I click on this little button right here, it's got like a little file-looking folder on top of another little folder. If I click it, I've created a new material. I can then change the base color to be something else, and now I have another colored box. I can keep doing this by clicking on a box, clicking on the material, and adding a new color. Click on a box, click on the material, click on base color, and make a new material. Go ahead and change your boxes to all be different colors, and yours should look something like this.